Hey, today we're going to try to do a crankset repair on a 2008 Coleman E3. This is a notorious crankset for some problems with threads being stripped. I know there are some YouTube videos out there for rethreading some of this. Frankly, mine was way beyond that. So I'm going to show you how to tear this thing down, hopefully show you how to put it back together, assuming I got the right parts. I think I did. I've looked at them, but you never know till you're in there. So we're going to get started on this. Hope this is useful. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is the crankset itself. This piece here is what gets stripped. These threads right here tend to get stripped. These can also get stripped, but it's not as big a problem. It's actually lowering the unit where the crank handle has to be able to bite onto the nut. You can see that these are pretty well stripped out in the end. There's no more bite available on these. I've already taken this piece off. It's off, comes off fairly easily. I think everybody can figure that out. There's a nut that goes in. I'll show that to you. I'm about to take this off. It's important to note that there are pop rivets on either side of this box that need to come out. Simply drill those out. When you've come underneath the unit, it looks like this. Notice I've also taken off the whiffletree cover. Gonna clean that down, grease that well. One thing that's interesting to note here, and I think it's notable for everybody, is these boxes are not well engineered in terms of protection from the elements. I had all the screws in this. You can see that a lot of mud's gotten in here. So one of the things I'm going to do today is spend a little extra time sealing this thing up, trying to find some ways to protect this box from the elements, because clearly this whiffletree and this whole drive system is not something that you want all dirty. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these bolts on the outside. There's two over here and there's two on the other side as well. Sorry about that. There's two on the other side as well that I'm going to get to. We're going to take that off and see how this goes. So for these bolts, it's an 11mm socket head that it's going to fit here. Probably going to need to grab the nut on the back side to keep this from turning off. But we're going to take this entire assembly off without taking out the actual cam. Sorry, without taking off the actual ratchet adjustment on this. Okay, so I've got the crank assembly housing off. You'll see now that what I've left in place, let me go this side, it's probably a little easier to see. You see that I've got those pieces, all of these move freely. It's important that we keep these in the same order. This is a pressure plate, this is the actual clutch, and then this is the drive that I'm actually going to be replacing. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Again, keep these in the proper order so that you can reassemble them the right way. Okay, so now what we're looking at is where the crankshaft, the new crankshaft, actually attaches to the whiffletree again. You can see that there are a couple bolts, not bolts, but pins rather, that are attaching them. The first collar there, this piece right here, is actually just a travel stop. The other ones are pins that we need to remove from this collar. The collar is actually what attaches the drive shaft. So I got to try to back those out. You'll notice that one side is mushroomed. So you're not going to want to try to push from that side through. You're going to want to push from the flat side out. You can see that we're looking at, sorry, the camera angle just faded away a little bit there, but the closest to the bumper, or the back here where you can see I've got my wrench attached to that, is where we're going to want to start attacking that pin to drive that out of the assembly. Alright, so I got really lucky here. So what I did was simply took a punch, aligned that with the end of the pin, gave it a few whacks, and it came pretty much right out. I'm going to try not to drive it all the way out the other side if I can. That'll make it a whole lot easier for me to get this piece back in, but okay, so my whole old assembly just came right out. It comes right out through here. Notice there is a bearing that is on here that's meant to stay on there for the sake of lubrication. I need to get some grease before I move forward with this. This moved really, really easily, which is good news. So next thing I need to do is get the right grease and try to get this thing reassembled. We'll be back soon. Okay, we are back at it now. I don't know if you can see this. So I put these on in the order that the diagram says. First this spring, then this nylon washer, then two separating washers. And in this replacement kit there was two different things that came. One was a coarse thread, one was a fine thread. Make sure you've got the right the right threads that line up. We're now going to see if we can't get this thing reassembled, so stand by for that. Okay, so everything's stacked up the way it should be. I need to lubricate everything here on the front end, make sure this bearing's lubricated. You can see back in there, I don't know if I can get this very well for you guys, but you can see, no, that's not going to work. You can see back in there that I've got to line this up with the drive shaft at some point, or with the wiffle tree drive. But I want to make sure everything is lubricated well in here so that we have no issues at all with this catch. So here we go. Okay, so I've lubricated where the bearing's going to go. I've actually lubricated the bearing itself and the shaft itself, but only the first little bit of it. We don't need to attract a whole bunch of dirt with the grease. And now we're going to put this back in. All right, so interesting thing happened here. When I went to install the new piece, it didn't seem to be long enough. So I double checked with some very good calipers to see that everything was exactly as it should be to spec. So what I've had to do was take a carpenter's vise, the long extendable one, and actually pull the wiffle tree forward. It moves very easily actually, but my biggest concern, I thought, oh my goodness, I've got something that doesn't fit. It does in fact fit, but you're going to need to be somewhat creative around getting the holes to line up. So don't panic if this happens to you. Like I did, I got right back on the phone with the parts guy saying, hey, is there another part? Did I order something wrong? Unfortunately, they didn't know what I was talking about, but managed to figure this out. So if this comes up for you, a little bit of pressure to pull the wiffle tree rod all the way back to the bumper, or inch it back. Maybe 1/8 of an inch was the only travel that I had, but if you have the same issue, contraption like this might help you as well. Okay, so when you are driving the pin for the coupler back together, make sure you're getting it all the way back in, significantly into the collar itself. If you don't, that could cause a fairly significant and catastrophic decoupling, something you clearly don't want. All right, so now we are reconnected. I can take off my temporary clamping device. Everything is now connected as it should be. I'm going to go back through and significantly re-lube and clean this, the wiffle tree itself. It's good to do that on an annual basis anyway. It'll just keep things moving as smoothly as they should be. Okay, now it is time to reassemble the assembly itself, put it back together, and first you want to make sure that this surface right here is absolutely clean. So hitting that with a little bit of brake cleaner or carb cleaner and letting it dry is a very good idea, as is putting all the parts together after having done the same thing to them. All right, guys, real quick here, want to focus on this section of thread. Okay, if you lubricate that, don't over lubricate it. But what's really important is this section of thread, as you're putting this nut on that goes on there, goes on with a number 16 driver set that fits down the handle as well. But you want to put some Loctite on that. Not red, probably blue, so that you can take it off and service it later. But if you don't, you run the risk of having it back off the way it did before and end up stripping the screws out. So Loctite on that section. Okay, the assembly is now back in place. You can see that it moves as it's supposed to. It's not going to back up at all because I haven't put the nuts on here yet. But you can see that when I push this all the way in, you get that familiar click click noise, which is exactly what we want. That means the teeth are engaging with the cog, or engaging with the lever. But now I got to fish some nuts on here and get this thing put back together. But not a hard fix, probably a couple hours max. Less for you guys now that you have some of the benefit of the problems I ran into, but hopefully this will help you do that. I'm going to, as I said, completely re-grease and do everything here on the wiffle tree, clean this up, get some good maintenance on it, and look for a way to seal it to keep some of the dirt out that is obviously a problem in this design. Anyway, I'll show you the finished product, make sure that works, and thanks for tuning in. Like it, promote it, do whatever you will on the YouTube video. I appreciate that. We'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, I would strongly suggest that you do not shy away from this project. It is not hard to do. You do need a couple key tools like a long carpenter's clamp, and certainly socket wrenches and punches and whatnot, all much cheaper to buy if that's the route you have to go than to pay somebody to do this work for you. But easy to do. Feel free to ask any questions. Hope this is helpful. Wish I had found something like this myself before I started in on this, but now you have it.